Hey everybody, Adam Savage at Prop Store in Los Angeles with Brandon Allinger. How are you, sir?
Hey Adam, I'm good.
Prop Store has a huge auction coming up. Maybe your biggest?
It is actually our biggest auction to date. Yes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of work has gone into putting this together. Yeah.
Over 1,800 pieces, of which these are 5, all from the Raiders of the Lost Ark franchise. And I'm holding it together, but I'm kind of low-key freaking out right now.
I like that you called it the Raiders of the Lost Ark franchise, by the way. That's very old school of you.
Is it?
Well, everyone would call it the Indiana Jones franchise. So, of course, that first movie is not titled Indiana Jones.
It's true.
Titled Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I like it.
Raiders is the film for me.
Yeah.
There are several others I've heard.
Yeah.
Raiders is it. But I'm a big fan of and replicated Henry Jones' Grail Diary to a great fidelity about 20 years ago. And I have never actually been around a real one.
It's a great prop.
Dude.
We looked at the pages a little while ago. We had some just pages, but this is an actual complete book. And this one came from the prop maker, Keir Lusby, who was an artist and a prop shop in the UK who very famously did a lot of the props for Last Crusade and maybe for Temple of Doom as well. And this was basically the last one that he had from production. Stephen Lane from Prop Store went to meet Keir Lusby in around 2008, 2009, and they actually got a few collectors together who also had original Grail Diaries and compared them all. And this was the exact diary that that Keir showed Stephen at that time. So, yeah, you talk about it. Why is it such a great prop? Why is it such a great prop?
One of the things about this prop is that it is not. It's about 200 some odd pages, but it's not 200 individual pages. There's about 30 or 40 that are repeated. And there are things here, like this page, that I have never seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like in the, there's a wonderful book about Lucasfilm that includes some really beautiful photographs of many pages of the Grail Diary.
Oh, the Star Wars to Indy book. Yes,
yeah.
I know one. Yeah.
And that's where most of us got our original references.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm noticing the paper is a laid paper with a visible crosshatch texture in it.
And what does that mean, laid paper?
Well, it's just like a specific kind of paper that's got, you can see kind of like a grid pattern on that.
Yeah.
When I was a graphic designer, we often concerned ourselves with stuff like that, right? Like, what is the texture of the paper? But I never, like, my replicas were made on copy paper.
Okay.
On a egg white copy paper that I weathered with coffee.
Interesting.
Oh man, it's so beautiful to hold on to this thing.
And I know people have done a ton of research on what the original source materials were for the reference, because I think some of the pages are lifted directly out of other books and things like that, and then some are custom for the story, right? Like this one here is obviously the glass window in the library.
Yeah, there's several whole plot points going on. And then also, one of the things that's actually really interesting is calligraphically, you'll read a sentence here like, once again, we see the blah, blah, blah. And then you'll see that same text replicated elsewhere in different writing.
Right. Yeah.
And they were just continuing. For here we have the, it is, you can tell my hands are shaking.
The great thing for me about a prop like this is how you can just get lost in it, and there's so much to absorb. And I mean, you could sit down and spend a lot of time looking through this thing, you know?
There's also, the fact is that the prop maker didn't work super hard to make all the Grail Diaries identical to each other.
Right.
And I appreciate not worrying about that.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like anyone was going to notice that there were different orders of the pages. But am I right, when you saw several Grail Diaries at once, they were all slightly different?
I think so, yeah. And even the covers as well have some differences. You know, just some of them have this kind of pattern going around the edge, and some do not.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, some of them have these lines, these horizontal lines on the spine.
I think the Lucasfilm one has more like elaborate end papers. The one that Lucasfilm has in their archives.
Is it textured or what is it?
It's not textured. It's more like the oil draw. It's a slight pattern. I don't have my laptop here, or I'd show it to you.
Okay.
Some of the page originals, it's from that Lucasfilm original, because Lucasfilm still has one of these.
Yes, yeah. I mean, as with many props that get a lot of screen time, obviously they had a number of them that were made for filming and made for production. We saw once a prototype version with a black cover, and the story with that black Grail Diary was that Spielberg said he rejected it because he felt it looked too much like a Bible. Oh. So they went with the dark brown cover instead of the black.
Fair enough. And this has ribs on the spine, also something I've never seen. And I just want to point out also that the prop master sewed these page signatures together with thread like a real book.
Right.
That's non-trivial.
Yeah, especially a book from that era. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one of the things I love too, is the little bit of like watercoloring, as well as the coffee and brown staining, the actual watercolor that's in.
Looks like there's probably an insert there at some point.
Yeah. Well, this one seems to be quite lacking in the insert department.
Yeah.
With only the silver certificate dollar here.
Yeah. How many inserts are in the Hero book?
A lot.
Yeah. It's kind of, they're just stuffed all over.
I think there's over 20.
Yeah.
There's like bus tickets, and then there's, if you really want to go, like I have a Grail rubbing in mind.
Okay,
You have the real Grail tablet.
The tablet, yeah.
There's also the Zeppelin ticket.
Yeah, of course.
There's whether or not you've added Hitler's autograph.
Okay, right, yeah. I think the theory is that the book that you see most of the time in the film is the one that's still in the Lucas archives, because it was shot mostly in close-ups, right? And then there's other props that are kind of the walk-around versions, like it's in their pocket or they're using it in a wide shot. But when they actually go to show you the interior pages, it's probably all inserts done at ILM later.
I must say, seeing the texture of the paper makes me want to retackle mine.
I feel like you've said that a couple times today.
I always say that when I come here. And next to this is a piece which I'm kind of blown away to see in the wild. It is a metallic Staff of Raw headpiece. Tell me about this piece. Yeah,
so this, not a prop from the film, this was a crew gift version, but this was made by the same jeweler in the UK who did the ones for the film. And I'm sure you know all about the two versions.
Yes, there's a Ravenwood bar version that's substantively different from the translator's version.
And the Ravenwood bar version is basically simpler, right? The sculpture is far simpler than what you're seeing
here.
The
wings are less faceted. They create more of a sort of a basic curve rather than individual feathers.
So I think they just weren't satisfied with the Ravenwood bar version as a piece for close-ups, and so they hired this jeweler to come in and make one that was basically a more detailed version of the same thing. He did he cast them in real metal, and that's what you see in the close-ups in the film, and then he made a few others as crew gifts. So this specific one came from the collection of Robert Watts, who was one of the producers on the film.
Amazing.
And the jeweler's passed away now, but I talked to him about 10 or 15 years ago, and I was doing some research. And one of the things he told me, which I had never heard before, was that the angels from the top of the ark are actually hidden in the prop right here within the wings.
They are!
And you never see it.
There she is!
And I had never seen it until the jeweler told me that.
There it is. So the angel, just to give you, and I have one back at the shop we can shoot so we can have reference here. The angel, she sits like this with her head down and her arms out, and you can actually see her thumbs on the wings of the Ark of the Covenant. And holy cow, you are right.
So what a little nod to connect it all together, which I don't know if anybody picks up on that. I mean, I hadn't seen that thing for years and never noticed it until the guy mentioned that to me. So
I have to tell you that about 1994, 95 is when I received a raw resin casting of, I think, one of these crew gifts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
that would make sense.
I then spent weeks with like a dental pick, slowly cleaning that casting up. It had a bubble down here, and I, re-scratched all the feathers and got everything really tight. And so I think actually a lot of the replicas that are floating around are actually subsequent castings from my lineage.
Of your version? Okay.
But the one thing that nobody's gotten that I've never seen, and I have 5 or 6 of these, is how thin it is.
Yeah.
It is so much less thick than the ones I've seen.
Yeah, really tight, but still weighty because it's cast in real metal. And I think potentially the chain is soldered on. Does that look soldered on to you?
I think it's actually cast in.
You think it is cast in? Okay. I think I've seen 1 or 2 others where it was soldered on. So
I definitely have seen that as well.
Different grades of them.
I mean, I guess this could be, but it looks like a cast element.
If you're not seeing any gaps in it, then
I'm definitely not seeing any gaps.
Then maybe you're right. Yeah.
So this would be a lost wax.
Yeah.
If it's a crew gift too.
Right.
They're not going to go through the effort.
Yeah. That's interesting. Maybe that's a way of distinguishing crew gift from.
Oh yeah.
From a film piece.
For mine, I actually ground off and re-braided wire and put it on for my casting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I was never going to get really that tight. It is. every time I come here, I get to see things that I never thought I'd see, and I also learn things I never imagined that I would get to learn. I see you guys have found my lost Sankara stone.
I don't think that's that one. I was at that party. That was a great night, but I am innocent of the great Sankara caper, I promise you.
I can tell you one thing. This isn't screen used?
No, we think this is a prototype version. They did a lot of experimentation with different resins and trying to figure out the translucent look. You see this cracking effect is really kind of crazy.
So the cracking effect is, I know specifically, it is about adding, so this is polyester casting, and polyester kicks with methyl ethyl ketone, MEK, and it takes a certain amount to kick it, and it's an exothermic reaction, and if you add too much MEK, it's too exothermic, and it overheats and cracks. And if it goes too far, it'll actually shatter. And they're clearly playing around, I think, with MEK proportions here to get the right amount of transparency, translucency, and
that's
cracking.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's a good history in how they made the piece.
There's a guy on the RPF right now who's experimenting with his own, like putting gold flakes in like the originals.
Very cool.
They're beautiful props.
Oh, they're great. And of course, there's multiple versions of those too, because there's the glowy ones.
Yes.
Which don't really look at all like the rock ones. And then there's the rock ones.
Now, tell me about this cup made by a simple carpenter.
Yes, this is really cool actually. So this is a genuine Holy Grail. And let me tell you, for this auction, we had this piece come in. We also had 3 others come in that we ultimately rejected because we didn't think they were correct. They were too large. So this is one of those pieces that there's a lot of copies of, and a lot of copies claiming to be original, but a lot that aren't quite right. The real ones, there's a size thing here. So I've seen some of the originals in the Lucas Archive, and we've had some production castings.
It's about 6 3/8 inches tall, or maybe 6.5.
A lot of the replicas are made larger.
Yeah.
And there's a specific profile to the cup itself, and then you have these, what would you call them? These sort of groove lines that from the pottery process, the wheel spinning process, which are really distinct on the body that a lot of the replicas don't have as well.
Also, interestingly, I'm noticing a very specific sort of gold leafing pattern to the pieces of gold leaf that they put in.
Yeah.
You can actually clearly see, and it's a really professionally done job. It's lovely.
And then take a look at the bottom of it. And so you got a little tiny bearing there.
What is that for?
The story behind this, because someone tracked down one of the special effects crew guys and talked to them about it, they said it was designed to link into a track so that it could roll in a controlled fashion along the floor for the sequences where the floor is all opening up in the Grail Knight temple at the end of the movie.
Oh, right. So like there's an earthquake and the Grail is moving towards a crack in the...
I think it's like it needs to go near the edge but not fall into the edge.
So my assumption then would be, given that I see 2 holes there, is that you would put 2 pieces of piano wire through there. And then from there, you could quite easily control how far it rolled. And then you'd only have to remove these 2 effective threads, as it were.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I love that bearing still spins really beautifully.
Yes.
40 some odd years later.
And for us, authentication is always a big part of the process here, right? And so researching it and trying to figure out why these things were made is part of the fun, but also part of the necessity of understanding the authenticity of a piece. So I actually like seeing something like that because for me, it's so weird that it's like, this has to relate to the movie production itself. No fan builder or replica builder would ever put a spinning ball bearing in the bottom of their cup, because why? It's too specific.
Well, it's also funny, I'm sure you come across replicas where you're like, it's too clean.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
This also, this speaks really highly to the incredible prop design throughout the whole series of, each one of these things feels like a genuine, real piece of the world it is from. They don't feel like they came from the same production designer, from the same director. They feel unique.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And also when we set them out the first time together in the showcase, we were commenting on the color palette and the sort of earth tones. And how representative that is of Indiana Jones, the character, his wardrobe, his world, that time period in history. It's just like there's no bright colors really.
You're totally right.
Very earthen.
It's all very sepia almost. It's like the olden times.
Yeah.
Brandon, I've got so much to think about. What a real treat to see these things all together.
I love Indy too, or should we call it the Raider series? I love the Raider series also. So yeah, for me, this is a great set of items to come through the door.
Amazing. That it's metal. I have one of these in my collection that someone actually did a lost wax casting in bronze, and it's my favorite simply because he says, it's a worthless bronze medallion, Mary.
Right.
You're going to give it to me?
Right. It should be bronze.
It should be bronze.
And I assume that's a weighty piece.
It is. And it's, of course, way thicker than this. And now, of course, I want to, like, I don't know, can I slice it in half and remove some weight?
How can you compress it? Yeah.
You're giving me a lot of work to do, man. Dude, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Adam.